I'd like to welcome you to today's session on records management. We like to refer to it as defensible records management, information governance, and we'll kind of go into what that means. I'm going to kind of try to tailor this to the specific needs of what the assessors at the township and county level probably are going to be up against or facing as they go through this. But anyway, we're going to be talking about the impetus for this is a way to manage your information, how to manage your records, and what the Local Records Management Act is about, which came about in 1962. The impetus for that was how do you throw things away in a statutorily compliant way? In other words, I'm going to throw something away. I'm going to get rid of it as soon as I'm done with it and have it done in a way that nobody can question it. Nobody can argue with me, and they can't come back to me and say, oh, by the way, you should have done that. In other words, it's a process, a compliant process that allows you to, at the end of the process, have a certificate that says, yes, I've done this right. I'm in compliance with statute and nobody can touch me. That's kind of what we're about. Now there's a booklet that's up that's been made available to you, and that's what I'm going to talk from. There's no slides or anything here, but I'm going to refer to this booklet. And for those of you who have a hard copy of it, take your time and mark it up if you want to. Anyway, we're going to start with what the Local Records Act is. It's on page 2. It says, what is the Local Records Act? I'm not going to read this booklet to you, but I would recommend that you read it. It talks about the purpose of the guide. It talks about what the Local Records Act is. It talks about what a public record is. Now, as an assessor, you're going through your processes, and there are certain assessment records like, oh my goodness, I got a list of them here. There's a bunch of them. There could be your complaints and notices, assessment information reports, notices returned, any of these things that you do in the process of your normal functions in your office, you're probably generating a record. In fact, it's easier to just assume that you are. And these records have a life cycle, and they have a process for their disposal. Now, there's kind of a unique thing, especially when you get downstate for assessors at the township level, is that we have what's called the application for authority to dispose of local records. And pages never return when you need them to. And that's found on page 6. This is an example of what one of these applications look like. What the application is that at some point in time, someone from our office has come out to your office and they've done an inventory of your records. This inventory has generated this list of records, and this is just a truncated list of what they might find. And then this application goes before the Local Records Commission or the Cook County Local Records Commission, and at that point they approve it. And when they approve it, it's no longer an application, it is a statutorily compliant fact. In other words, I get this question, well, what's the statute? What's the statute that says I got to keep that? This is the statute. Okay, once it's approved by the commission, it becomes statute for your agency. Now, what you find for a lot of assessors, like I said, at the township level, is that this may be folded into the township clerk's office, the township clerk's application. Sometimes it may be separate for the assessor's office. Sometimes you'll find it under the township clerks, along with the highway department and other functions of the township. So it just depends upon how it's been done. And in a lot of places, there's never been anything done. I can think of a couple of counties right on the eastern edge of the state that several townships in there that don't have anything done. And the standard rule of thumb, if you don't have authority to get rid of anything, then you got to keep it forever, which is not really an option either. And the unique situation, a lot of your township trustees, township assessors end up with downstate is that they keep this stuff in their home. There's not a situation where you've got the a township office. You may have a township office, you may not. Your office could be in your home. So you're retaining these records in your home. So you don't want to keep more than you need, okay? If you've got 30, 40 boxes of records, that's not the way this is supposed to work. These things have a life cycle, and the whole idea is to get rid of things when you're done with them. And the process for this, and I'll briefly explain that, is you have your application in place, and then when it comes time to dispose of your records, you do a disposal certificate. They sound like a lot of trouble, but it's not. Once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty quick. And there's an example of a disposal certificate on page 10 of the pamphlet you got here. And you don't have to worry about what's on page 11. You don't have any video surveillance to worry about. But what you're going to focus on, like, is page 10. And the example there that we've got is, and this is tied to the example on page 6, where we've got item 101, which is, it says administrative files. If you go back over here in your application, and there's item 101. You go over here, item 101, administrative files. Look at it, that has a 1-year retention or until administrative need has been met. And you can get rid of those things after a year. Then you send in your disposal certificate. And oh, by the way, this also includes email. That's not associated with another record service. Do your disposal certificate, send it in. We process it, make sure it's okay and complete. We send it back to you. When you get it back, we'll set a date on there of about 30 days after when we approved it. After that date, you can get the stuff gone. And we recommend that unless there is a FOIA in process or any kind of litigation, that will slow the process down. But if you don't have anything going on, get rid of it. So like I say, that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's the 20,000-foot view of how this process works. So if you have never heard of the application before, and that's all new to you, and since you guys are new to this, it probably is new to you, ask about this. If you can't find this document in your office, ask your township clerk what the story is. See where this is. If you cannot locate, if the township clerk, we don't know about it, and you can't find anything off in your office, then contact our office. We'll search your database to see if one was ever done. And if it has been, we'll get you up to speed on it, get you back into the process, get it going. If your records are not covered either in the township clerk's application or under one separately for you, then we'll arrange to come out and have this done. This is no cost to the agency. This is about efficiency of operations and continuity of operations. No charge for it. We'll get you dialed up, get you going as quick as possible. So you'll find that once you get doing this, and you'll do this annually, where life works easier, keep this cleaned out. It becomes something you do every, every January, every December, or if you're on the, fiscal, and you want to do it on the fiscal calendar, you can do it then. Just depends on what works for your agency, what works for your office. The idea is to keep cleaned out, keep things going, because the one thing you don't want to have to do is get FOIA. And that's where this has really become, this was in place long before FOIAs. But now that it's here, or now that we have FOIAs, it's like all of a sudden, yeah, this isn't such a bad idea. Because if you got a FOIA for documents and they want to go clear back to 1986, 87, or even earlier, then you're going to have to present all of those. But if you got disposal certificates for certain of those documents in that date range, then all you do is say, here's my disposal certificate for those documents, they're gone. And that's the end of our conversation. So that's, in a nutshell, that's the process. I recommend that you hang on to this pamphlet so that you have it. In the back of the pamphlet, you've got all of our contact information and reference materials. On the very back of this pamphlet, there's a color-coded map. And the way that map is set up, You can see, you look, find your county, and then you'll see what territory you're in for your local records field representative. You can contact that individual, or you can contact this office with any questions. Be glad to help you out. The whole idea is to get this stuff going as quick as we can, and in a trustworthy manner. Now, some of the records you might run across as a township assessor, and I'm sure that the township assessor up north, hers might be a little different. The thing that we find out, the whole way the Local Records Act works, it is based upon what we find in that office. And every township assessor does things a little bit different. Okay, they have some basic things that they do, and then they have some things that they do that are unique to them. And as a result, we have no one size fits all. It's what we find, and we don't come in there and try to change the way you do things. It's what we find. This is what the inventory showed, and that's what you've got. Now, as time goes on, if you've got an application that's dated 1978, which would be like 78145, maybe it's time to update that. And that's where you get it. Contact our office. We'll send the field rep out, do a new inventory, see what you got, and get a new application done. Well, in other words, we'll supersede it for you. So the least reasonably recurring. These things, after about 20 years, they really need to be looked at again. And we really recommend that you talk to your field representative maybe once a year. We have a lot of these applications and disposal of retention schedules that we put out, and we never hear from anybody again. One of the things that has happened quite often is that the township officer got one of these applications back, and they thought, well, this gives me authority to dispose of everything. Then they go ahead and kind of operate in their own little world, never realizing that they needed to do a disposal certificate. So the disposal certificate is necessary. We like to refer to the disposal certificate as your get out of jail free card. If you get a FOIA, or if you get any kind of litigation, they want to see this record. Unless you have a disposal certificate, it needs to be there. And that's just kind of the hard truth of it. But if you got your disposal certificate, that's the end of the discussion. But if they ask a question and you don't have the record and you don't have a disposal certificate, you're going to be having a conversation with lawyers, and that's something that I like to avoid. So that's kind of like I said, in a nutshell, how this thing works. I'm going pretty fast, I know. And I'll run here for about another 5 minutes or so, and then we'll open it up to any questions you might have, anything specific. One of the things I mentioned earlier was, email not associated with another record series falls into the general correspondence category. What does not associated to another record series mean? Well, let's say I got an email and it's talking about the budget. Okay, then that email will be kept with the budget paperwork and be kept with, let's say, with the budget worksheets, which has a 2-year retention. Or let's say it comes in and you got an email about application for homestead improvement exemption. Then it would go with homestead improvement exemption, which in this case is also 1-year retention. Or if it was an assessment complaint, then it would go with the assessment complaints and be kept for 3 years without retention. A disposal certificate, or excuse me, a record, an email still needs a disposal certificate for it. Okay, we don't care what the format of the document is, it's what the function of the document is, or function of the record. And for disposal, it still has to have a disposal certificate. So keep that in mind. No disposal certificate, hang on to it. So I'm kind of referencing the one for the Grant Township Assessor's Office, which was up in Lake County, and some of the things that they had in theirs. Property information sheets, and they're keeping theirs electronically for 1 year. Property index numbering change records. They had a record called that. And that had a 2-year retention. Notice of funding by the county board of review. That had a 3-year retention. Property record cards. That's something all of you deal with. Some of you are digitizing those. Some of you still old school on a 3x5 card. Or how long do you hang on to that? Well, that's to retain until superseded by a new card. Make sure that there's continuity. You know, you transfer all the pertinent information to the new card and with new owners and whatnot. And then what do you do with the old card? You do a disposal certificate, get it gone. So real estate transfer declarations, 2 years. I'm just kind of skipping along. Township plat book, or township plat map books. Now that has a permanent retention. Now, what does permanent retention mean? You know, I like to say it means forever, okay? We're not talking 10 years, 15 years. Plat map's going to be, you know, expected to have, in other words, the township assessor, if we're still doing this in 100 years, we'll need to have that book someplace, have that as a reference if it hasn't fallen to dust. But permanent means you hang on to it permanently. And the application for authority to dispose of local records, which I talked about, which we have the example of in the pamphlet. That's a permanent record. That is, you're to have that in your office at all times. Okay. You need to have it there or know where it is. And for instance, if your office is someplace else, but your records are part of the township clerks of records, you need to know where that application is. So because you're going to have to reference it. If you get a FOIA, they're going to want to see it. So these things have to be immediately available to the public. Because if they can't get it from you guys, they come to me and get it, and I'll provide it to them. And, you know, they'll do with it what they want. So you want to kind of control your information. I don't have to remind any of you, we have our good friends in Edgar County, and you don't want them giving you a phone call about anything, at least of all about your records. Okay, on my clock on the wall, I'm showing 2:20. I've covered what you need to do. This is, you need to have your application for authority to dispose of local records, which is your retention schedule. If you can't find it, let us know. And like I say, it may be in with the township clerk. If not, you may have your own, or you may not have anything. Let us know. And this would also fall into, so if, for instance, you're doing a multi-township assessor's office, and you know that kind of still falls into the same category. So you need to have that in place. Then you do your disposal certificate based on that, again, using the pamphlet as a guide, and submit that, do that annually. Once you get them back, get the records gone, hang on to the disposals. And if you get a FOIA, then you're all ready for it. So Amanda, that's all I've got on this one, so I'll open it up to questions.
All right, well, thank you, Robert. Before we go into the Q&A, I'll have our other two panelists here just kind of introduce themselves and give a little bit of a background of their role in this process. Mary, you helped me coordinate this session here, and this was something that was important for you. Do you kind of want to introduce like your background and any highlights of your experience with record management?
I'm Mary Tamez, and I am the assessor in Crete Township. And actually, so one of the things that I kind of stumbled upon with this was I walked into contracting for another assessor's office, and a lot of the paperwork there was older, and I wasn't sure how long we needed to keep any of that. So this is all very informative to me too. And I just kind of kept everything there, and I still have lots of questions too. And then in doing this, I also reached out to Amy Chavez, who's our Will County, she works in our Will County Recorder's Office. I think you're the deputy. Is that how you guys are referred, Amy?
I'm the chief deputy over here.
Chief deputy, yeah. And so she's been very helpful with a lot of things too. So I think that, you know, obviously there's lots of questions I have. I know there's probably a lot of questions everybody else on here has too, but I'll let Amy talk, and then I guess we could go back to talking with Mr. Boots about everything.
All right, thank you, Mary.
Okay, well, I'm Amy Chavez, and I'm, like Mary said, from the Will County Recorder's Office. We obviously record all of the documents for Will County, real estate related or otherwise. And we have our own record retention obligations and restrictions and everything like that. So similar to what you guys have, but for different types of records. So if there's anything that we can do to answer any questions for you, for any of your documents or just things in general, I mean, we're here to help you in any way that you can to be successful, because we obviously have a job in tandem here to work for the community.
All right, great. Thank you, Amy. We do have a couple questions in the chat already. They're coming in. Thanks, everyone. We'll start with the first one, and then whoever wants to answer these, I'm gonna tell the truth. I know nothing really about record management, so I'm gonna need your guys' help to direct on who's the best one to answer these. But the first question we have here is, how long do we hold on to quit claims?
Wait claims?
Quit claims.
Oh, quit claims, like quit claim deeds?
That's what I'm guessing. So yes.
Well, I've got a list here. Quit claims.
And my question too, kind of to stand on top of that question, is, you know, we get those deeds from the recorder's office. So in my understanding is that's their record to keep, and we just have a copy of that. And I'm hopeful that that's the situation, because that's what I've been, the process. We have it scanned into our system, but you know, we can always access that record from the recorder's office, so we don't keep it.
That's correct. The recorder's office there, that's where the permanent record's kept. And what you have at your level is a temporary record that's really used for your reference. And those things are not, I mean, in other words, you're not responsible for the original. I just saw that here, PQR. But it was like 1 or 2 years. It wasn't very long. The idea being is that you're just having it there for your reference. And so as soon as you use that to either change the record, like on your cards or something, then it's served its purpose and it can go away. It still should be on a disposal certificate, just so that you know, and it'll be on your application just so that you know to get rid of it. A lot of times if you don't put something down like that, folks just hang on to it and hang on to it and hang on to it. And then you end up keeping it forever. The quitclaim deeds, like I say, those things are a part of the recorder's permanent records. And if you needed it at some future time, you could always go back and get it. But they provide you, I think if I'm correct in this, they go ahead and provide you a reference copy of that when the transaction is taking place, so that you can update your real estate records.
All right, great. Well, I hope that answered the question here. If not, you know, feel free to follow up on that. I'll go to the next question in the chat. So I'll go with Jane's first question here. What other type of township records need to be permanently kept?
At the township level, you mean for the township assessor or just for the township in general? For instance,
Jane, you could go ahead and unmute, or you could add it in the chat what you specifically meant with that.
Anyway, with the township, at the township level,
overall township, both township and assessor, mainly township.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. Anyway, at the township level, you have your township minutes, which are permanent. You have certain construction records, property records, easements, things like that are kept. But usually for the township assessor, most of their things are, reasonably short term, mainly because, like you say, the county recorder of deeds is keeping those original township or original real estate records. For the township assessor is about making sure that he can make a proper assessment of what the value of the real estate is for tax purposes. And that's, most of the stuff is generally under 5 to 6 years for most of the township assessors type of records. The longest one I saw was abstract of assessment, and that was 10 years. And that was the longest record that I could see for the township assessor.
All right, we can go on to the next question here. I have it here from Jamie and Vicky. And please feel free to unmute and clarify your situation if you would like. But their question is the only way to amend an existing application is to have our rep come back on site to re-inventory our docs?
The amendment can also be, let's say I just want to amend one item. If you're going to supersede the whole application, then yes, a new inventory should be done. But if you're going to amend an item, or if you're going to do an add-on, a conversation with the field rep, and that can be handled over the phone.
7 of them came from Dorothy. 3 of them I had to have euthanized. So I had 4 showed up.
All right, sorry, there was someone unmuted. There was some background noise. So did everyone get that answer? Did that get interrupted at all? Okay, I'm seeing some head nods there. All right, awesome. The next question is also from Jane. What happens if some township records disappear, financial and otherwise, and no one seems to know what happened to them?
Yeah, that happens. Well, as long as you weren't responsible for it, usually what we do is if let's say you had a predecessor 10 years ago and some things were missing. Do a memorandum for that, just so that you have, saying, hey, 2005 through 2008, those records were missing. That was during another person's watch that happened during that period of time. And you just hang on to that, keep that information with your application so that you have it there. Really, the only thing you can do on that is do a mea culpa. We can't do a retroactive disposal certificate in those cases. Also, let's say that the township, building burns or there's a fire in the garage or any of that kind of stuff. When that happens, you contact our office and we'll do it and put a disposal certificate specifically for those records you think were destroyed. And then we'll have that for you there so that you've got that available. But if you got something that happened 10, 15 years ago, you're not responsible for it. The person that was responsible for it is probably long gone. And but you could at least do a memorandum for it, say this was gone during this time period, and this is who was responsible at that period of time. And that's really all you can do.
All right, thanks. Mary, you were so polite and put your question in the chat on here. So Mary's question is, do we have to apply for the disposal as a township or can we do it as the assessor?
It depends upon how your application is written. Even if the application was written for the entire township, it depends upon your relationship with the township clerk. Again, it's a downstate, it's kind of a local, whatever applies to your agency. If you have one that, like I say, that's a consolidated one, and you want to submit as the assessor for those records that you're responsible for, then you can do that. Like I said, if your clerk wants to do that, then the clerk can do that. It's something you're going to work out. If you have your own standalone application, yes, you definitely have to do that because nobody else is going to do it. So depends on the situation.
So my other question is, we had somebody come out a few years ago, and I guess the issue was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the oldest document was in a safe that they couldn't get open. And until we reached that, we were unable to complete it. So I think that we kind of halted everything to be able to access that document, and it still hasn't happened. So I'm asking it because I would love to get rid of all my stuff.
Yeah.
Or do we need to wait? Or like, I mean, I could obviously apply pressure to get it going, but if it's something I can apply for separately, then.
The thing is, go ahead and, how long ago was that?
I want to say it was probably at least 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay, and you're in Cook County?
Will
County. Okay, let me get my map there. That's Mary Kay Haggerty as your field rep. Give Mary Kay a call. Come on, get the inventory down on what you can get to.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what's in the safe. Anything that's in that safe's already probably could have been disposed of anyway.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Okay.
the longest record you've got is 10 years. And
Okay.
that safe's probably longer than that. So
Oh yeah.
Go ahead and get started on this and get started on it now. So give Mary Kay a call, or you've also got her email. You can send her an email and you get the process going, get your inventory done.
Okay. And then how often do you suggest we do it? Once a year? Go through everything?
Yes, at least once a year.
Is there a lot of townships that do that?
Well, the ones that are on top of it do. Those that aren't sometimes wait 30 or 40 years. I don't.
Yeah.
The recommendation is to do it annually. It depends upon how much stuff you want to go through if you get a FOIA. Okay.
True.
So it's, if you like to have a clean, tidy house and not dig through a bunch of stuff with a FOIA, then stay on top of it.
Sure.
But we do recommend doing an annual disposal. It just makes it easier for you and also for us. And when you do your disposal certificate, list everything that can be disposed of on in your application. A lot of times we'll get an application or a disposal certificate, it just has one item on it. The thing is, there was 50 items on the application. So that's 50. That means there's 49 items on there that you're keeping that you shouldn't be keeping. The idea is this is a process that allows you to dispose of those things that you do not need to keep. This is nothing nefarious. This is no way to try to beat the public out of anything. This is a way that you can effectively manage your business process and keeping the detritus of operations out of the way. This makes it easier. Also, when you have, get to pass this along, pass the torch down the road here, you can do so easily. And, and you're not having boxes stacked all over the place. There's just no need for it. You should be able to keep all of your records in one filing cabinet, unless you're in one of the really big counties, but most of your downstate counties would probably do it in a box. So, it's just about making life easier for yourself and for your constituents you serve.
All right, we can move on to the next question. I have a comment here from Tracy, which I'm guessing you're wanting confirmation that you're doing this correctly. I see a head nod there. She wrote that all of my paperwork is just copies of what the county has sent me. Everything else is the property of the county, like the property record card. And she was told that she could keep the copies for 4 years, then she can dispose of it.
I didn't know that. That it depends upon, like I say, again, how the county operates. The county assessor's office provides the township assessor with the information. By having your application at the township assessor's level, it just gives a certain management of those records, even though they're all reference copies. Technically, a reference copy can be thrown away whenever they want to keep it. Just coming down with an arbitrary 4 years is something somebody pulled out of their ear. That's not our recommendation. I really think that for good records management and good business operations, the township assessor should have their own application. Okay. And I know there are certain county assessors that like to, they like to operate the way they like to operate. I'm not going to argue with them, but I'm just going to recommend that this be the way it goes. And it just eliminates that accumulation of stuff. We see this a lot at the township level, and there's no problem with it, but everybody just keeps everything forever. And they end up being a pack rat about this stuff. So, well, I might need this 10 years from now. And especially where you can, a lot of the downstate ones you had, the assessor might be there 20 years. There'd be 20 years worth of stuff to dispose of. This way, it just keeps a clean house. It helps keep the individual, it helps the assessor stay organized. It also helps the assessor to be able to access the information in a timely fashion when they need it, and also not having all this old stuff around that they don't need to dig through. So, there is very few records for the township assessor to have 4 years. Like I say, I mentioned the one for 10 years. So if the county said keep it for 4 years, they're keeping some of that stuff longer than it needs to be kept. So my recommendation, no offense to the county assessor, when it comes to records management, you need to come to the folks responsible for that. And we'll intervene where we need to.
All right. The next question I have on here, how long do yearly assessment books need to be kept? What about property records when a property has been sold?
Okay, when we're looking here, it says assessor's book, which is list of taxable real estate. There's a 5-year retention on that. I think those reassignments were, I think they were 1 year. Yeah, I think it was 1 year, 1 year on that one. Assessment of notices return, assessed valuations. Assessed valuations is a 7-year one. I'm not finding that exact one. The thing is, when we go through this process of doing the inventory, it tends to be a little more exacting. Better than me just doing this on the fly. Sales ratio listings are 1 year. That's kind of one of those that you folks use a lot. Real estate transfer declaration notice is 2 years. I guess what you're looking for in that question?
Yeah, I'm not sure specifically. If I do appreciate that what you're saying is kind of giving people a general idea on the records, but to contact their specific commissioner for that area to inventory, that makes a lot of sense there too. So and apparently the last question, Kathy decided that we could disregard her question, so that actually comes to the end of my list in the chat. With that said, I still want to open this up to questions. You can either unmute and just ask it out loud, or you could type it in the chat. We're flexible here. In the meantime, I don't know. So with Mary and Amy, I know you guys have worked together a lot. Are there any common things that you have worked together on in regards to records, or any general questions you get a lot from assessors that you get, Amy, that you would like to share with the group?
Well, I guess I would just like to expound on some of that information about the information that you guys get from the county itself, or about the deeds themselves. So obviously, wherever it is that you're getting your information, whether it be from the county itself, from the website, from a Laredo, from a Monarch, from some type of resource like that, that information, like Robert had said, is information that has to be stored on our end. It's a permanent record that we keep internally in our system. We keep it electronically for anything up to 1965. So otherwise it's in a book form or film form, but that information is all on our websites and documentation, books and films. So you know, as far as your own records, when you either get a county disposal certificate or record set for your own township, just know that we have our own requirements for keeping that information. So if you do find that you need some of those records and maybe you don't have them or they're not accessible to you any longer, that is something that our office is able to provide to you. So to just keep that in mind, that the records that, you know, would come from us aren't lost because you don't have them. They are kept here with us. So we do get a lot of people that call and ask about, you know, records like, oh my gosh, I don't have a copy of a deed, or, you know, I only have X amount of pages or something like that. Those are records that we maintain here. So they are always accessible. So you can always feel free to reach out if there is something that you need from us. Something additional as far as your constituents goes, it's not essentially about the records management or otherwise, but something just to keep in mind that at least for Will County and in several counties throughout the state, our office has a direct search that's accessible online so that you can view all of the data. We also offer a Laredo option to where you can look up those records online, which most of you should have access to. And if you don't, you can certainly reach out to our office as far as Will County or Dave through the county assessor's office. They can go ahead and help you get set up with those things. Some other offices have our Monarch subscription as well to pull some of those records for the larger townships. So if there's anything that, you know, we can do to, you know, better assist you or answer some questions about some things that maybe you're uncertain about that maybe we have a better handle on, you're always welcome to reach out to us. We'll help you in any way that we can.
All right, great. We have one more question in the chat here from Jamie and Vicky. All of our PRCs are electronic. Am I able to request destruction for all paper copies because the electronic versions have superseded the original paper PRCs?
Yeah, those can be disposed of. I think property information sheets. So I'm thinking she's talking about, and those only had a 1-year retention to begin with. Are those the green sheets or something like that?
She said property record cards.
Oh, property
so
record
the PRCs. Yep.
Well, they've all been digitized. The idea was that's a reference card for your use. And they were to be retained until superseded. If it's all digital, then yeah, they could all be disposed of. And, you know, you could just do your disposal certificate and just get rid of them all. That way you can have them gone. But also remember, when they're gone, they're gone. And I've had too many horror stories when agencies get rid of all their paper or the digital versions, and then they kind of wish they'd have kept the paper for a little while longer. But that's kind of something that you have to come to that conclusion on your own. But yes, if everything's digital version now, the paper can go away, and you can do a disposal certificate for it. That way you just got an audit trail.
All right, sounds good. We've got a couple of new questions added in here. Jamie has asked, what type of emails do we need to keep?
Okay, I talked about that earlier on. All your email falls into the category of general correspondence, and has to be kept at least a year. Now, within that general correspondence, if you get something, let's say you got an email about this class, that's not correspondence, you could delete that immediately. Let's say I get an email wanting to know about a meeting or something like that that's not of an operational need. You can go ahead and dispose of that. The correspondence that addresses the operations of the office or functions of the office, like I said, if you got an email about a homestead exemption, that needs to go with the homestead exemption paperwork. You get an email about a complaint, about an assessment, then that needs to go with that complaint file and be kept with that. And segregated out in that way. Otherwise, like I say, things that are considered what we call transitory messages, those things you get from vendors. And like I say, from professional organizations, stuff that you want to keep, you can delete those as soon as you get them.
All right, thanks for that clarification. We've got one last question here. And you guys, we still got a little bit of time. So if you still have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or just ask them out loud. The question I've got here is it best then to consult with the county offices for advice on records to maintain in the Township Assessor's office?
You can consult with them. The thing is, at the end of the day, if you're keeping items there in that office, you should have a disposal, you should have the application in place. So the consultation should be happening with your field representative about what you're retaining in your office and then what you're disposing of. If you've got any records in your office, the county assessor cannot do a disposal certificate for you. Okay, that comes from the township assessor. Either that or you ship all your records back to the county assessor and let them do it, I guess. That'd be the other option, but that's the way the process is supposed to work. It's supposed to be by office and what that office keeps, always recognizing the unique operation of each office. Because the township assessor in Will County does a lot of different than somebody down in Adams County. So just kind of the way the state of Illinois operates.
All right, do we have any other questions from anyone attending this session? So, well, I want to thank you all for attending this and asking your questions. I want to thank Robert, Amy, and Mary. Thank you for being with us today. Robert, thank you for your presentation. And Amy and Mary, thank you for adding your perspectives and answering questions as well. We really appreciate you all being here. Robert, Amy, Mary, did you have any parting words that you wanted to share before we adjourned?
Just thank you for having us. And if, like I said, you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to ask.
The same, if you got any questions, you got the booklet and feel free to ask.
All right, great. So our next webinar will be on March 21st. It's going to be all about the quad years. So be sure if you want to attend that, go ahead and sign up in the student portal and get the information from that. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. So thank you all so much for joining. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.